Good evening, everyone. The June 17th, 2025 Douglas County Board of Commissioners meeting will come to order. Certainly, welcome to the citizens of Douglas County. County Clerk, could you please take a roll for the record?
Yes, ma'am. District 1 Commissioner Henry Mitchell. Present. District 2 Commissioner Whitney Kenner Jones.
Present.
District 3 Commissioner Martin Raxton.
Present.
District 4 Commissioner Vice Chair Mark Alcaraz.
Present.
Chairman Dr. Ramona Jackson Jones.
Present. Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Board of Commissioners and the citizens of Douglas County, we are pleased to have with us this evening our Pastor Everton Ennis with us this evening to lead us in our invocation. Please stand for the invocation, and after the invocation, please join me and the Board of Commissioners for our pledge to the flag. Thank you.
Let us pray. Our gracious God and our Father in heaven, it is with grateful and humble hearts that we, the citizens and leaders of Douglas County, gather before your presence this evening. We thank you for your majesty. We thank you for your mindfulness of every person under the sound of my voice. And we thank you for your love and for your grace. This evening as we come, we pray for our commissioners and all the citizens of this great county. As the meeting progresses, we pray in that name that is above every name, the name of Jesus, that you will grant our decision makers your guidance, your wisdom, your understanding this evening, that they might know how to lead this county aright. We pray that you will grant them the discernment to abstain from disparagement in the midst of disagreement. We pray that they will be able to circumnavigate and to separate personality from public policy. We pray that you will grant unto them, because of your goodness, hearts of servant leaders. We pray that every citizen, every resident in Douglas County will be one who seeks to build up and not tear down our community. And that as we work together, the elected and the electors, that we will collectively bring glory and honor to your name, and unity and a blessing to our community. For we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Ennis, thank you so much for coming out this evening and taking your time to spread grace and prayer all over this amazing county, and appreciate all of you, everything that you do in our community and your servant leadership. Thank you. All right, Board of Commissioners, we're going to move to public comment. Clerk, do we have anyone sign up for public comment tonight?
Yes, ma'am. We had one individual. Before I call you up, I'll just remind you, you have 3 minutes to address the board. Once your 3 minutes are up, we'll ask you to wrap up your comments. And when you reach the podium, please restate your name and subject matter and address for the record. Jeremiah Perinack.
Good evening, Jeremiah Perinack, 3040 Beaumar Road, Douglasville, Georgia. And I'm here to speak to you about the moratorium on the moratorium on the assisted living zoning exemptions. I think it's item 5. It was removed from the consent agenda. And I just, we have one in our neighborhood, and it's generated considerable discussion, insightful discussion that you will not have the benefit of hearing, because for a couple of reasons. It takes more than 2 minutes to hear what my neighbors' experiences are. they wouldn't be appropriate really for this forum to hear what my neighbors have experienced. And 3, they're not likely to come into an environment like this and speak freely in an environment like this. But I'll just say it has generated considerable discussion in our community, and I would just, it's a difficult thing to consider the welfare of individuals, but as a matter of building a community, framing policy that is enforceable, equitable, to the task of driving forward a robust community. I just want to let you know that is on the radar of folks in our neighborhood, and so anyway, I won't really speak in terms of in favor or against it. I'll allow you to consider those things for yourself. Also, there's a T-SPLOS, which is transportation, so I guess I get to talk about transportation. I want to remind you that transportation creates value, and I just want you to, we have transportation projects going on. Looking forward to our meeting next month about the Beaumar widening and the Lee Road extension. All of those things create value. The challenge is to create positive value. So anyway, just want to remind you of that, the substantial investments that are being made in transportation, that they create value, and we need to keep that at the forefront of our mind. But that's all I really have. Just again, the moratorium on the item number 5, moratorium on rezoning or special use permits applications for assisted living facilities and personal care homes. There is an active application in our community, and it's generated considerable discussions. That's all I've got. Thank you, and thank you for what you do. We appreciate your service.
Thank you so much for coming in to share your thoughts with us, and certainly we'll take this matter under advisement. Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, please announce what's next.
We don't have any other
Okay.
citizens.
We don't have anyone. That's it? Okay. Well, that leads right into our presentation. We have a presentation here tonight for us tonight, and Chad Griffin, who's our Director of Parks and Recreation, is here to present a ceremonial check to our Special Olympics athletes of Douglas County. Hello, Director
Good
Chad.
evening, Chairman, Board of Commissioners, and Administration. First, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Chairman Jones. Thank you to the Board of Commissioners and our administration. And thank you to our Therapeutic Board for your ongoing support and leadership and your belief in our mission, which makes tonight's event possible. So thank you. I really appreciate it. A special thank you to Commissioner Raxton for your commitment to this event. Very appreciated. Thank you. A very special thank you to Dr. G. Your support of Parks and Recreation does not go unnoticed, and you are an amazing leader, and we appreciate you. Thank you. To all the staff, thank you for your time, energy, and heart that you put into making this event successful. So thank you. And I want to give a very special shout out to Christian Vankevich, our therapeutics coordinator. Your work behind the scenes has been incredible. You've gone above and beyond, and we're better for it. This wasn't just a day on the golf course. It was a day about purpose, a day to raise funds, raise awareness, and rally support around our Special Olympic athletes. Thank you all for showing up and standing with us and believing in the power of inclusion. And right now I want to introduce Christian, who will tell you more about the event in that day.
Thank you. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you. Thank you, Chad, and thank you, Commissioners, for having us. The Drive for a Cause charity golf tournament, was the first annual one was this year, took place on Friday, April 4th, 2025, at the Chapel Hill Golf Club, benefiting the Douglas County Special Olympics. This event successfully brought together teams, sponsors, and donors to raise funds in support of local Special Olympic athletes, ensuring they had the resources needed for training, equipment, and other competition costs. The Special Olympics program in Douglas County, Georgia has been a part of the Douglas County Parks and Recreation Department since its establishment in 2005, Over the years, the program has grown, offering various sports opportunities for athletes with intellectual and physical disabilities. This was our first tournament. We deemed it a tremendous success. The tournament itself raised over $21,000 to directly support the Special Olympics Douglas County athletes. The overwhelming generosity and enthusiasm from the attendees reflected the commitment to creating meaningful experiences for these athletes and reinforcing the importance of continued support for our Special Olympics athletes here in Douglas County.
Wow. That deserves a hand clap. What y'all
Yes.
think? Thank you.
So we have a check that we would like to present our athletes, and we would love for you guys to help us present the check.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to come down. Board, is that okay? Here we go. You're going to bring everybody up?
Yep.
Okay. Come on down.
Nah, not yet.
All right, Board of Commissioners, certainly we will move to our next item on the agenda, all right, which is the agenda adoption. Board of Commissioners, are there any changes that need to be made to the agenda? Please state it accordingly now.
Madam Chair, I do have one small amendment to item number 23, and in advance, thank you, clerks, for getting that agenda item on so quickly. I do need to make a modification. I had said December 31st, but after discussing with Commissioner Alcarez and Commissioner Raxton, it does make more sense that it be by October 31st, so we can have this information in time for budgeting, and this would be for the initial phase of the strategic plan development, so by October 31st.
Okay. Any other
Yes.
revision?
Madam Chair, I would just like to ask my friendly amendment to Commissioner Kenner Jones. Can we just pull that off to new business just so a few comments can be made about it?
That's fine.
Okay. 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 So, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to pull item 23 under new business.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board, for this to be pulled off? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand for it to come off. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to remove that item. Any other
Yes.
corrections or additions that need to be made to the agenda? Commissioner Raxton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would like to have, or ask that item 12 be pulled to new business. I have some special conditions in regards to moving forward with this particular item, so I would ask that it give us time for us to discuss that and make sure that it's captured.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries. Okay, to remove it and move it to new business item. Okay? Clerk, you have that, have those two items that have been removed?
Yes, ma'am. We
Okay,
just need to adopt the amended agenda now.
Okay, we will. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to adopt the amended agenda? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Please indicate if you're in favor, I guess. Indicate by raising your right hand if you're in favor. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote with no opposition, and the motion carries. All right, let's move to our next item, Board of Commissioners. Next, we have the, time limits. Let me remind you about your time limits. Each commissioner has 3 minutes to make remarks with a 2-minute rebuttal, so if we could just be mindful of that, board. Next, approval of the minutes. You have the minutes of the commission meeting of June 3rd, 2025, the work session minutes of June 2nd, 2025, and the executive session minutes of June 2nd, 2025, and June 3rd, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes.
Motion carries 5-0.
We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, board, and the motion carries. We're going to move on next to our agenda items. And Madam Clerk, at this time, you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. We will start with number 4, which is approval of a Victim Assistance Protocol MOU that maintains a working arrangement between the Board of Commissioners and the Solicitor's Office, Sheriff's Office, Douglasville Police Department, Share House, and the Trinity Center to promote support, administer, and enhance services provided to victims of crimes in Douglas County, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
Okay, board, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, board? We have a, okay, Commissioner Raxton, I almost got out the
Yeah.
gate too fast.
No, and I guess I'm not sure if anyone's here to answer. I was just inquisiting or just wondering, for the 5 years, why was it for 5 years, the contract agreement? But that was just a question, but not to say yay or nay, but I was just curious, that's a 5-year period.
Okay.
But
The,
there's no one here to answer, that's fine. I'm good with
Okay.
it.
We have an email that was sent to you
Yeah, I'm
earlier.
sorry.
You had an opportunity to see that?
Yeah, and it
Okay.
looked like the prior one was 3 years, so that's why I was curious. It went up to 5, but again, it's not a showstopper at all, so.
Okay. Oh, we do have some, okay.
You break it, she bought it.
Hi.
Lindsay Knight, I'm the
Hey,
Director of
Lindsay.
Victim Services at the DA's office. The 5-year change was just after in communications with our partners at CJCC. They said there is no specific time frame, but they recommended a 3 to 5 year gap, and we just went with 5 to kind of make it an easier time gap to keep up with.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and again, I just saw the last one, I think it was 3, and I
3,
was
yeah.
just curious as why it went to 5,
Yes, sir.
that's all. Okay,
Okay.
no worries. Okay, thank you so much,
No
Madam.
problem.
Could you
Madam Chair.
restate your name again for the record?
Lindsay Knight,
Okay, Clerk, you have that?
Yes, ma'am.
Lindsay Knight.
Yes.
Thank you, Lindsay.
you're welcome.
Madam Chair, you have the floor back to you.
Okay. Please prepare to cast your electronic votes, Board.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
Number 6 is a resolution to impose a moratorium on rezoning or special use permit applications for assisted living facilities and personal care homes for a period not to exceed 90 days. Allison Duncan is here to answer any questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Commissioners. I'm more than happy to answer any questions about the specific terms of this moratorium. This would be for 90 days, and it would include assisted living facilities and personal care homes. It would give the staff an opportunity to review all codes and regulations, not just the zoning code, but working with our colleagues in the building department and the fire marshal's office to make sure that we have all the correct procedures in place to help streamline any approvals. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, any questions, Board, before I call the motion? Okay, I'll call the question, should I say? Okay, no questions?
No, there
Oh,
is.
wait, I'm sorry, Commissioner
Yes.
Mitchell, I didn't see you. You have the floor.
So Allison, are you saying though that your department is not kind of prepared or ready to take on this without a moratorium of 90 days? Meaning, what you just stated, that these, you're trying to get the ordinance and the process in line, and you need that time to do this.
Sure thing. So when we changed the Unified Development Code back in December to require that a special use permit was now required for all personal care homes. In doing so, we have been able to create the process for transparency in terms of the neighbors understanding the personal care homes coming into their neighborhood, and everybody having a voice and a say in the process. Once they're done with zoning, they move into the permitting phase of it.
Correct.
And I think that as these uses have kind of worked through the process over the last 6 months, there's been questions from the building department and the fire department in terms of, how they should be treated under the respective building and life safety codes. So to answer your question, we could certainly continue to coordinate with them without the moratorium in place. I think one advantage we would have for a moratorium is that we wouldn't necessarily have any more applicants coming through the pipeline, with there being questions about whether these are going to be treated as commercial or residential properties for purposes of the code standards. We do already have one application that will be on the July agenda, and I believe we'll have at least 2 applications on the August agenda, so those would not be a part of this moratorium. But I think going forward, the advantage that I see in having the pause is to make sure that we have everything aligned so that the applicants who are applying for the special use permit under zoning also fully understand what the requirements are going to be for the building and fire marshal's requirements for the code compliance.
So this will just give you more time to just put something in play, or your process in play that will help you with this 90-day moratorium will help you do just that. Correct?
Yes, sir. So again, we'll take feedback, from a variety of parties. We heard the comment tonight from the citizen that there may be some additional citizens who'd like to have some input in the process. But in amending the Unified Development Code to create the process whereby there was more transparency on these uses coming into individual neighborhoods, we've created more questions in terms of what standard they have to be built to going forward. And so the moratorium would make sure that we don't have anybody else working through the process that gets caught in the middle, where they have the zoning entitlement in place, but then they may not realize that there's certain improvements that are going to be required, through other reviewing departments to actually bring the use online.
Right. But they are, still, with or without this moratorium, the community and or residents still have opportunities and times to actually come before us or you and anybody else to have conversation, because there's a process with the process that includes them having conversations.
Yes, sir, correct. I mean, there
Okay.
will still be, again, we never know what the outcome is going to be
Right,
until we get
right.
there.
Mhm.
But we would not anticipate changing the zoning piece of this so that there would not be, public transparency.
Correct.
For anybody trying to establish this use in a neighborhood. So, but in doing so and kind of like bringing that to line, there's been some additional questions that have come up from the other departments. And so
Okay.
that's what we're principally trying to clarify. But as always, we'll sort of follow the direction where it leads us. And if there's other things that we need to clarify in the process, then we're certainly willing to kind of make all adjustments as needed. Again, it's up to the will of the board if you'd like to move forward with the moratorium. These are things that we will need to sort out, going forward. But rather than taking it on a case-by-case basis, we hope that we can maybe work with our partners in other departments and sort of get things clarified, in a more complete manner than what they are now.
Okay, thank you, and I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it. Thank you, Allison. I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. Any other discussion, board? Okay. With that being said, certainly, Commissioner Kenner Jones, would you need a raise to call of the motion for that one?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve a resolution to impose a moratorium on rezoning or special use permit applications for assisted living facilities and personal care homes for a period not to exceed 90 days.
Do we have a second, board?
Second that.
Okay, we have a second, a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate, well, yeah, cast your electronic votes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we have a 5-0 unanimous vote and the motion carries. Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. Next, we have number 6, a resolution to extend a moratorium on future land use map amendments, rezoning or special use permit applications or variance applications, and all public hearings for computer infrastructure providers, data processing, web hosting, and related services for facilities or campuses in excess of 50,000 square feet, and including accessory structures and uses for these facilities for a period not to exceed 90 days.
Okay.
Right,
have the
so
floor.
again, we have, this is an extension of the moratorium that was put in place for data centers. This moratorium will expire tomorrow if there is no vote to extend the moratorium. I believe you received a copy of the recommendations report that we completed in April. There's maybe a couple of updates since that time that we could certainly share if there's interest in that. But otherwise, we would stick to the recommendations. If it is the will of the board to extend the moratorium, we would intend to follow through and stick to the recommendations that we had put in this report to you, as well as any other priorities that may come from the board during this discussion this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and again, this is work that we will continue to make progress with one way or the other, but again, if we have the moratorium in place, it would provide benefit to the community so that they understand that there is potentially still a change in our process in the pipeline. So.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chairman, I believe you have a question.
Yes, yes, and may I, if I can get James Worthington to come up to the podium.
Good evening.
Good
evening.
evening.
No, this afternoon, you and I had a meeting with Trammell Crow in regards to what data center is coming to the Waldrop Farms. I just wanted you to share for my colleagues the impact that now Georgia Power has now put into place in regards to basically an impact study and what they're going to do and an impact for their future build-out use. I just wanted you to share some of that information because it's going to be very important for our data centers and whether we have any more data centers coming forward.
Certainly, I'd be happy to do that. So as you're aware, data centers, particularly in the size and scope that we're seeing now, are relatively new. And there's been data centers around, but they're growing in the size and capacity to kind of a new era for us. So we had discussions, as Commissioner Alvarez just mentioned, with another developer, and we had went over some of the changes with Georgia Power. So the Georgia Public Service Commission had made changes to their regulations earlier this year, particularly in reference to large load users. Large load users typically defined as someone with over 100 megawatts of use, which would be, rough terms, 100,000 to 200,000 homes worth of power. So this is a significant user. We do not know the actual amounts on all of the data centers that we have, but I'm confident many of ours will fall into this area. So what it looks like going through some of the slide presentation, it looks like a lot of the changes specify, I don't know if they're specifically called impact fees, but something of the sort. To even initially start the application is $100,000, and then there are collateral, kind of like a performance bond that they have to put in with Georgia Power, and these will be potentially tens of millions or hundreds of millions in collateral they'll have to put up. Minimum 15-year contract. So this is a very significant finance portion of their project. So I think it will definitely have an impact on the number of new projects that are coming along, because it's going to have to be someone that is very serious about their project to continue through the process. Is that sufficient? Would you like
That's
anything
sufficient.
else?
No, I just wanted that information to be
Okay.
shared, and also for our citizens to hear that, because I know that a lot of them are concerned in regards to the power usage. And what is Georgia Power or Greystone doing to provide, or worried about those fees coming back onto the citizens? This is actually what Georgia Power is taking away, and so it will not impact the citizens when these big companies want to come in. That money's put forward so that it will be paid for by the company and not our residents. But also, again, to make sure that these companies coming in are serious about their project and to put up $35 to $85 million up front before you even get the letter. That's changing also. They have to provide that money before they will ever give planning and zoning the letter saying that they will supply them with power. So that's something we're going to look at in regards to our changing or approving planning and zoning, because that's part of what we require now is to have that letter up front. But now they won't have that letter up front until they pay that. But yet also you have to go through the whole, Georgia Power is wanting them to go through the whole process, DRI and everything, before they will give them that letter. So it's going to change everything, how we're looking at planning and zoning in regards to these large buildings and definitely these data centers. So I just wanted you to share that, and I greatly appreciate it. And
Sure.
I'll turn it back over to anyone else, and I'll yield the floor back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Chair. Any other? Commissioner Kenna Jones, you have the floor.
It's me for James, yeah.
I was trying to keep.
Do you know if the modifications or changes that Georgia Power is considering, that Commissioner Alcaraz just discussed, is that in any way in response to the Department of Energy's recommendations that are coming down saying that basically municipalities that are approving large-scale data centers need to ensure that they're actually preserving their power grid, because with the new AI technology, they won't be able to power homes and neighborhoods, data centers, all of the things that are being generated if they don't expand the wattage that the current power companies are able to put out?
So I don't know the origination of the discussions on it. I mean, I know it started, the Georgia Public Service Commission is the one that released the rules, and they are who, they're the governing council for the power provider. So Georgia Power, we have Georgia Power and Greystone here, but Greystone buys from Georgia Power. So it's all kind of a southern company as generation goes. But so I don't really know that answer, but part of this fee structure they've set up and the collateral setup is if anyone they start any of this construction and they bail on the project or they go elsewhere, the power company is able to collect that collateral to cover any of those costs. So none of those costs are passed on to anyone else. No citizens or typical homeowner, I guess, would be covering any of that cost. So it's protection for the regular folks.
And then I know when I went to DC, and I actually just saw it on the news a couple of days ago that the EPA is rolling back a lot of the federal provisions for your Clean Water Act. So did our data center moratorium do any looking into what the possible impact is or different regulations, suggestions that we should be making in the planning and zoning process to ensure that our water supply continues to stay protected when companies don't have a federal rule that they have to comply with.
So, and if you want to join in on this, you're welcome to. But so, the more recent ones we've had are using more electric cooling rather than water cooling.
Yeah, of course.
So it greatly reduces all of that amounts. But whatever their usage is has to go through the Water and Sewer Authority, and they're the ones that would be handling all of that, those regulations related to the water quality.
In our reporting, did we work with WSA to see if they had any recommendations that they wanted to, or for us to consider at the end of the moratorium?
Sure.
So again, one thing that I would say, if you look at our recommendations report, our number one recommendation is to continue to coordinate with the utility providers. When we also spoke to the pros and cons that we kind of put into the report, one of our big questions was about how existing ratepayers would be impacted, right? So the feedback that we gave to you to contemplate back in April is that new power generation infrastructure, including all of the new transmission lines and things like that, tends to require 40 to 50 years to pay off, right? So then the question that we always had at the staff level with a lot of these hyperscalers coming in is what happens if, even if they come in under a 15-year abatement program or a 10-year abatement program, right? If they're committed to us for that long, there's no real way that we can continue, to require anything of them if they up and move. And that was always a question that we had about adaptive reuse or where some of that is going. So I think today it sounds like we're getting a glimpse of the policy that is starting to take shape around it. The other thing you'll notice in our recommendations report, we included 4 or 5 pages of just the volume of projects that were coming through, because this was a lot of the information that was going through the DRI review process. And so we're just looking at this at the staff level saying, oh my goodness, right? This is going to be a lot of the similar type of project coming into adjacent jurisdictions, right? These are all jurisdictions in Metro Atlanta surrounding us. So that was our question, is how is the infrastructure going to be handled, whether it's electric cooled or water cooled facility? And to my knowledge, those are basically the 2 options that we have right now. I haven't seen a technology that's come online that says you're either going to use a lot of water or a lot of power or a combination of a lot of both of them. And so that was our number one recommendation, is that we need to continue to sort of figure out what this looks like going forward and how we can stay in communication. And as we start to see, groups like the utility providers and the Public Service Commission and the Water and Sewer Authority kind of roll out where they think that they're going with this, because a lot of it, as you can kind of see by some of the charts that we've included about just the tremendous ramp up in demand for infrastructure, that was always our question, is how is that going to be addressed? Not that it's a good use or a bad use, but we just simply thought that there were unanswered questions, and we could not deliver on the expectation that we felt the community had in answering them. So that may be a long-winded way of addressing that, but again, that was always very much the thing that we saw, and we put that front and center on our recommendation, is we needed to continue to figure out all those pieces that had to come together beyond zoning.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Kenner-Jones. Any other? Commissioner Braxton, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess just in context of what we just heard from Georgia Power / Southern Company, is there any potential impacts to any of our in-flight initiatives that we have previously approved?
So from what I've seen, it looks like anything that has already started the process will be exempt from these.
Okay.
And this is fairly fresh, so I've not had ample time to do a deep dive, but I did see some things that noted that if you were already started, it would not apply. It would apply if you were under that 100 megawatt threshold and you expanded over it, then the rules would apply.
Okay.
And then everything new would apply, so.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I was just curious as far as, the ones that we have previously approved, where they were. All right, thank you. All right, Madam Chair, I yield the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Commissioner Mitchell, you have the
Yes.
floor.
Thank you. Either or, whoever want to stand up and have a quick little conversation. So it'll probably start with you though. The recommendation report, you mentioned that there were some things that were stated. I mean, I don't know, did you get a chance to say them all, or what you found thus far with the first moratorium that's in play now? I just wanted to share, I want you to share those. You mentioned a few just a moment ago. That was in your report.
Yeah, so again, the report, we compiled this shortly after the initial moratorium was passed. So there's a few more projects that we have gotten word of, not just in Douglas County, but, you know, kind of in surrounding communities. So there's a few more projects that we've gotten word of, a couple more parcels that expressed interest. So that information is not currently included in this report. The other thing that has changed is the development of regional impact, the DRI review process. So that's another update that I would provide, is that because of the definition of industrial use in the DRI regulations, as of right now, any property that's currently in the pipeline is going to have to continue to go through the end of the DRI review. But the Department of Community Affairs has hit pause on any new projects going forward for DRI review. So typically, they had been treated as any industrial building with a 500,000 square feet or greater, you know, project impact. They've taken a close look at the rules and they've said, well, it doesn't really meet up with our definition of that. So the word that we received, I think last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, is that we're going to have to hit pause on any DRI review. So anything coming in, you know, tomorrow, fresh, is not going to have to go through DRI review. So you won't get that statement of regional impact. And right now, we don't have any more information than that. We're not certain if they're going to revise the DRI rules or if something else is going to change. But so that was another thing to just make you aware of, is that you're not going to necessarily have the ability to see what the potential cumulative impact, you know, for surrounding jurisdictions would be on these projects. So those are two things that I would just kind of share that have come to light since we put out this report. And then as recently as this afternoon, we've received more information about, again, some of what we had been hearing, you know, that Georgia Power was working on some very specific rules and, you know, potential mitigation to the impacts. If it is the will of the board to extend the 90-day moratorium, we will continue to refine this information, bring you more recommendations. I can say since the moratorium went in, I've only had one inquiry about a project that was not a site that was unknown to us, but it was a project that I hadn't had previous familiarity with. It's a property located Fairburn Road in Anawake in that area, and so we did receive an inquiry about a potential data center in that location. We advised that we couldn't speak to them with any detail at the time because we had no idea if the regulations were changing, you know, so we couldn't really give them any information. But I think to the point that James made and that Vice Chair Alkeridge alluded to, we have definitely seen the inquiries slowing for this type of development, but for all types of development across the board, you know, in general.
Right. So, but this moratorium, which are you from staff level recommending that we do to give you more time, to more ability to kind of put a better infrastructure in place when it comes to these data centers and anything of this caliber?
Sure. So my response to you is that it's we're going to follow the will of the board, right? If you need a greater degree of comfort than what you have now with kind of where this is moving, then I think the moratorium extension is a good idea.
Okay.
Again, much like we've said with the other, we can work on these recommendations without a moratorium being in place. What makes it difficult is if we have applicants coming in saying, hey, I want to build this, and we're in a little bit of a gray space.
Understood.
They're going to be presented to you for zoning with the kind of a, this may change, right? Some of what we've seen is kind of already happening, right? So this is very much an area in flux. Again, if you're comfortable with where we are, then, you know, we will continue to process applications as they come to them and present them to the board for a decision. But right now, my answer on a lot of these things is still like, well, we don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing in the long term, right? Because this is kind of very much a moving target for us to hit right now.
Right, but it sounds to me like you're not comfortable with where we are, so that's not bad.
Sure.
I'm not making it bad, but you're not comfortable, so that's kind of sort of good. That makes me, you know, kind of think twice about it and say, should we move forward? Because I feel confident to say I can vote yes or no.
Sure, understood.
You know, and it's that simple with me, though. Thank you. Sure. And let me, James, with the other part, and this may be part of you as well, with the whole Greystone and Georgia Power and this new, that Commissioner Alcaraz just stated about this new additional cost. I'll call it an impact fee for these types of businesses. That is strictly affecting that data center or that business itself, period. Nothing to do with the homeowners and citizens and all that good stuff, correct?
That's correct, and I would say that's one of the primary purposes for it is to ensure that any cost of infrastructure or the grid improvements are covered by that user, the end user, not everyone else that's already existing.
Right. And that being said, so that may be why we need a little bit more time to kind of flesh out what that really is, how that applies to our code and our zoning and all that good stuff. So when that do come through as a potential request, then he or she can say, these are the things you got to get through first. And it won't have an impact on the citizens of Douglas County versus that data center in Douglas County.
So one thing I'm not certain about is the time, because it's new, the application process through Georgia Power. I suspect the application process would be slower than our moratorium. So I don't know that that'll have a significant impact as far as how this plays in, unless the moratorium is extended multiple times. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying.
Right.
90 days, given the amount of information that's required, load studies, I don't know that what their turnaround time is on these applications. So I think overall it's going to slow down the number of applications we see, but I don't know yet to what extent.
Well, it will most definitely make sure that you're sure, meaning not
Right.
you, that user of that and
Yes.
having to pay that type of a cost to make sure that you really want to bring this here and you're going to really do this, because you got to kind of fork out,
Right.
I'm calling it impact fee, but it's not that. But again, that's kind of what it seems to be going. But I know Georgia Power, or it may have been Greystone or somebody said one time that they were building these power grids to make that type of an adjustment for a user like a data center. So that's already been, the conversation had already been had on that side. It's just that what are they going to actually do and who's going to pay for it?
Right.
So I think now we're having that conversation.
Yes, I think you're correct, and I think the purpose of all this is to make sure those,
Yes.
in this case, data centers cover all of those costs for all of those expanded grid networks.
Right.
For the additional generation capability.
Right.
And so forth.
And so I'll ask you that same question. Do you think an additional moratorium would be a great or something we should definitely consider versus, and you're saying to me though that even 90 days is not going to be enough time to even get to that part of what they would actually put together on that grid cost? Excuse me.
I will repeat what she said. I thought that was pretty accurate. I mean, if you're comfortable where we are now, we're able to continue. I don't know, this is a very fluid situation just overall. I mean, it could all dry up in the next 6 months and we not see any more, or we may see.
Oh no, you're going to
these
see
for
more.
10 more years.
I doubt that very
So-
seriously. You're going to see more. This is the wave of the future.
Right,
AI
so-
and all this good stuff it's coming.
So it's hard.
Not
It's
here.
too early for me to make a prediction. I guess,
Understood.
is
That's
where I'm
okay.
at.
That's
So-
fine. That's okay. That's fine. Okay. Well, outside of that, I mean, I'm glad to note that at least we want to try to press pause one more time. And now I feel confident that we've got a good reason as to, because I'm confident that I can vote yes or no, whether this should or shouldn't come. But I'm only one vote. But at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with, standing on my principle of yes, this is worthy, or no, this is not, period. So, but yes, I got you. Thank you again, and I appreciate you guys, and Madam Chair, I'll yield back. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you so much. Managing Director, if you just please, we don't mean to wear you out today. Just had a question. As we make a concerted effort to protect the power grid in Georgia at large, you mentioned the permissible limits threshold. Was it a 100,000, what was that, megawatts, did you
So
say?
it's 100 megawatts.
100
is
megawatts.
what defines a large load user. That's kind of where all of these new regulations are targeted. Anyone above that 100 megawatt threshold.
Is there any way that, just for the sake of knowing, is there any way to measure or quantify the megawatts that are currently being used in Douglas County with regard to data centers? Just wondering, is there any way to measure that?
I don't know the total amount among all the data centers. As far as homes go, and it varies greatly depending on the season and, what usage. Generally, you're looking at something like, that would probably be equivalent to somewhere between maybe 100,000 and 200,000 homes, which would be about, that would be more than we have in the county for 100 megawatts. The loads are typically trade secrets amongst these, so they don't disclose everything to the exact. But I am fairly confident to say we've got some between 200 and 500 megawatts.
Okay.
So very substantial load. And another factor that may just be a point of reference that may help, I can't guarantee this is accurate today, but in the last year or so, I had talked with someone from Greystone. Their entire service network was 750 megawatts. So these are very substantial users.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for that information. It really helps. Sure. Okay, board, are any more questions? If we have no questions, Commissioner Braxton, you want to call the motion?
Sure, I'd like to call the motion that we approve resolution to extend a moratorium on future land use map amendments, rezoning, or special use permit applications as presented by staff in the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your electronic votes.
Motion carries 5-0.
We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries. Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
Yes, next we have number 7, resolution approving a moratorium on certain applications for small box discount retail stores for 90 days for a review of the comprehensive plan and unified development code, as well as related documents and studies, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review.
All right. List, you were getting tired of moratoriums. This is my last one tonight, promise. In May, middle of May, the moratorium on the small box discount retail operations had expired. We have continued to make progress on some of the recommendations. So we have reached out to CoStar, and we were able to get that subscription. We also have an agenda item on the July agenda to present a concept for reverting some of the old zoning that never vested, that's in areas that may not be appropriate for it. So we are continuing to make progress on some of those recommendations that we had put in the report. Again, if it is the will of the board to give us another 90 days to do a deeper dive to follow up on some of these more specific things, we understand that it would be a priority of the board for us to rearrange our schedules to make that happen. That being said, I don't have any pending applications right now or anything on the radar for small box discount retail. That's not a request that I've gotten. But if the board is inclined to put a moratorium in place for another 90 days to give us more time to make progress on these recommendations, or anything else that we maybe didn't capture in our initial recommendations report, we're happy to do that.
Okay.
And that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Board, we have any questions for our manager of planning and zoning? Sounds like no questions. Vice Chair, you want to call the motion? Would you please call the motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the moratorium on certain applications for small box discount retail stores for an additional 90 days.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your electronic votes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
Okay, number 8, establishing an ordinance which codifies previously approved resolutions of the Board of Commissioners on the creation, responsibilities, and terms of the Vice Chair of Board of Commissioners. This ordinance will supersede prior resolutions on the roll and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. And this was deferred from June 2nd, 2025.
Okay. All right, board. Commissioner Mitchell, you want to call the motion? Would you, please?
If I want to ask for discussion before the
Okay.
motion.
Okay, yeah, any discussion, board, we could do that. We have discussion.
Madam Chair.
Okay. Vice Chair, you have the floor.
Yeah, I would just like to make an amendment to that because what I did not see was a date for the next vote for our vice chair, which, because we all agreed on the previous resolution, it'd be the last month of the next following the next term after our previous vote. So I would just like to see that add to next vote to be December the 15th of our 2026 work session.
Okay. Clerk, did you capture that request?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other discussion, board?
Which section?
Which section? Bless you.
It was the ordinance that we just put forth. I did not see a date showing for the next vote, upcoming vote for vice chair. So as per our past resolution that we just made earlier this year, I would like to see that make sure that this ordinance states that is December the 15th, 2026 will be the next upcoming vote.
Any other discussion, board? Or any other additions? Okay, we have no other discussion. So Commissioner Mitchell, would you like to call the motion? If not, I will.
I would not.
Okay. All right, no problem. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to establish an ordinance which codifies previously approved resolutions of the Board of Commissioners on the creation, responsibilities, and terms of the Vice Chair of the Board of Commissioners? The ordinance will supersede prior resolutions on the role, authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending the final legal review. And this was deferred from 6/2/25. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance with the date that was asked for the amendment to show December 15th, 2026 to be our next vote for vice chair.
Okay. Do we have a second? Do we have a second, board? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. I need to do a hand?
Yeah, since we amended it.
Since we amended, okay. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Okay. All opposed? Okay, we have a 4-1 vote and the motion carries. All right.
And so, Madam Chair, if I may, just as a reminder to the board, I mentioned that with the passage of this amendment that would impact your section 2.3 that identifies your procedures and the call of the meeting. So you all would, at some point, probably at a subsequent meeting, need to amend that ordinance.
Yeah.
To the extent that it might conflict.
Yes. Section 2.3 just said I could choose anybody, but we're just going to insert vice chair for the meetings, to conduct the meetings.
I'm sorry, what?
If I have a question now past the vote, do I have to make a motion to recall the vote to be able to ask that question?
No, you can ask a question, and then based on the answer, we may have to do
I
that.
thought that this resolution, and I'm sorry, I didn't call for this, so I was not 100% sure why it was on the agenda. But I was under the impression that the purpose of this was to resolve that conflict. But it sounds like now this has created a conflict.
So at yesterday's work session, when we were covering this, I advised that because section 2.3, the call to order identifies, back then you all didn't have a vice chair position, so it stated essentially that at that time it was a designee of the meeting. What you guys identified, or at least what was communicated to legal, was that your intent was to consolidate your resolutions as it pertains to the vice chair.
But we still haven't resolved. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes. So, I mean, I think it's just a minor mod, but hold on one moment and I'll pull it up specifically.
And so I guess I have the same question from yesterday. Whoever helped draft this, what is the goal or purpose that we are trying to achieve with it? And because I don't want to create conflict with
I
our
understand.
charter.
So I think there's a bit of confusion. So you guys' code of ordinances, when you guys adopt or propose resolutions. It's sponsored by one of you all. We draft it in accordance to that. And so the person who is sponsoring it would have to speak to the intent. What was communicated to legal was that the intent was to consolidate all of the resolutions as it pertained to the vice chair position, which this does. However, Section 2.3 of your Code of Ordinances, same rules of procedure, in item number 1, call to order, all meetings of the Board of Commissioners shall be open to the public. The chairman, or in the chairman's absence, the member designated by the chairman, or if not so designated, the member of the selected members present, or any other parties designated by the board, shall take the chair at the hour appointed for any regular, temporary, adjourned, special called meeting, and shall immediately call the board to order. So you now have an ordinance where you have identified that person as being the vice chair. So, whereas before, you all didn't have a vice chair, it could have been anybody by designation.
So why did we not just amend the actual charter to account for this position?
So you all don't have a charter. So you guys have Section 2.3. And again, in the work session, I identified this conflict for you all. So to the extent that you all have a conflict in your ordinances, you would have to resolve that by amending the conflicting ordinance. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion?
I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do have a question.
I'll yield.
Give me 1 second. Let me pull up the vice chair ordinance.
Okay. Just give her time to pull up the
Yeah,
ordinance.
she's filling the
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay. I'm trying to make sure that there's not a quicker fix. Okay. So it looks like what you're doing here is adding a section 210 in that same chapter.
So I do have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Braxton has a question.
Right.
You have the floor.
So I guess my question is, if this is, if there's an ordinance in place and there's a conflict in the ordinance, as far as resolving that, my thought is potentially we need to maybe call for another vote to get this resolved so there's not a conflict in these ordinances. And how do we go about doing that?
Right, so that's what I was saying. You would just amend section 2.3.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying about amending section 2.3, but I guess what I'm thinking is that potentially we do a revote of this particular item, recall it, in order to have further conversation, table it, in order to have further conversations to understand section 2.3 before we bring it forth for a vote at this forum.
Okay. If you all want to do a vote to reconsider, you can. If your goal is to adopt the vice chair ordinance, an alternative that I would recommend is that you all just move to amend section 2.3 to be consistent with 210, with newly passed 210.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused now.
So essentially, what you would do is that you would just move to add an amendment to section 2.3 of your code of ordinances, and you would just make the modification that to the extent that it conflicts with newly passed 210. Instead of just leaving it up to chance, you would just say it's the vice chair. That makes sense.
Okay, I'm a little confused. All right, so I guess I'm more along the line that we consider recalling this prior motion in order to have further discussion about section 2.3 so that we can resolve this conflict. And then for me, I don't know how my other fellow commissioners feel, but you know, I know I would like to go in and, you know, being a part of this particular change in this ordinance and consolidating these ordinances to make sure it's not conflicting with the existing ordinances that we have on the books. So I'll leave that up. I don't know if how other commissioners feel about that. Certainly, the floor is open, but, you know, that's my thought, Madam Chair, at this point in time.
I have one more comment. Vice
Yes.
Chair, you have the floor.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I'm done. I don't have
Oh.
a comment. I'm just gonna.
I'm just trying to understand. Now, like I asked yesterday, first of all, why we're doing this, and then now once this is being done, now what is the conflict, or what is there that some of my colleagues have an issue with? I would just like to know. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other comments, y'all, or responses at this time?
Yeah, well, I can address that, Madam Chair. My concern is that I don't want to, if we're in conflict with what's currently existing in the ordinance, I want to read that ordinance and make sure that we don't have two ordinances that are diametrically opposed. And whenever we bring back an ordinance, that we consider what the current ordinance is. And then if we need to, in this ordinance that we're proposing, make that change, that we're all aware of what that change is, because I don't know what else is in section 2.3. Madam Chair, I yield the floor back to you.
So let me just briefly clarify. I just read section 2.3 and where the conflict exists. I think the simple fix for tonight is you guys could simply, and you can do it tonight, add it as an item to amend ordinance 2.3, and just where the sections where it leaves it up to the chair, which person runs the meeting, you would just now say the vice chair. Because that's what you've laid out in your vice chair ordinance, that it's the vice chair that assumes that role in the absence of the chair.
Madam Chair.
You have the floor.
So if I'm understanding this correct, and I would like to know, because I don't know of any other way government is actually structured, but is there a conflict, or is there some reason why someone does not want the vice chair to run the meetings in the absence of the chair? I yield back.
No, I think where the confusion is right. 210, as it's proposed and now voted on, was probably proposed in isolation, right? The idea is to consolidate all of the resolutions with respect to the vice chair position. Probably in doing that, was unaware that your section 2.3 rules of procedure, you guys didn't have a vice chair at the time that y'all did that. There, or you did, but it wasn't codified in your code of ordinances. So where that was originally just whoever was designated, you now have a vice chair that would assume that
Look at
role.
everyone's input.
So you just can reconcile that.
What I would like to do is, Madam County Attorney, Deputy, would like to just go into recess for a second, print the code to allow the board to review it, to see what their thoughts are, so we can come back. Got a second to allow?
Okay,
I would love
and
to
what
do
I'll
that.
do is I'll
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, let y'all
Right.
just take, since you're not familiar with it.
Right.
Clerk, if you could. Yeah, I'm taking, Board of Commissioners, I'd like to take a motion to go into recess. Do we have a motion? To
So
go?
move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of recess, please indicate by raising your right hand. All opposed? Okay, we have a 4-1 vote, and the motion carries to go into recess for 2 minutes, Board.
Where do we go?
Clerk, are you going to make a copy? Yeah, please, so they can see. All right, thank you so much, citizens of Douglas County, for the slight pause for the calls to allow the Board of Commissioners to go into recess. At this time, Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to come out of recess?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. In the discussion board, we have a motion and a second to come out of recess. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 4-0 unanimous vote with no opposition, and the motion carries. All right, we will pivot back to tab number 8. Certainly, it was establishing an ordinance which codifies previously approved resolutions of the Board of Commissioners on the creation, responsibilities, and terms of the Vice Chair of the Board of Commissioners. And we did have a motion on the floor. We approved it, but certainly I want to yield the floor to Commissioner Raxton for a slight
Thank you.
friendly amendment.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to suspend the rules to recall the prior motion that we would then add an additional or an amendment to ordinance 2.3 in that motion that we are looking to recall.
Can I offer a friendly assistance on the motion?
Yes, you can.
Madam
Commissioner.
Chair, I think initially what Commissioner Raxton would like to do is a motion to recall the vote on agenda item number 8. And
Right.
I will second that motion.
Do we have a,
I made the motion, I just cleaned it
Yeah,
up for us.
Do you have a
Yeah,
second?
it's been seconded.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. In the discussion board, we have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate to recall. Indicate by raising your right hand. We have a 4-0 unanimous vote to recall motion, and the motion carries with that being said. I yield the floor back to you, Commissioner Raxton.
Yeah, all right. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that as part of item number 8.
Tab number 8.
Yes, that we modify section 2.3 to read as follows. Call to order, all meetings of the Board of Commissioners shall be open to the public. The chairman or the chairman's, or in the chairman's absence, the vice chair, or in the absence of the vice chair, a member designated by the chairman, and to continue as worded currently. So again, okay. So that is my that's my motion at this time.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. All opposed? Okay, we have a 4-1 vote, and the motion carries. All right. Board of Commissioners, Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
Yes.
I was just making sure we didn't have anything else to do for number 8.
Okay, we're
Okay, so number
finished.
9 is amendment of the ethics ordinance regarding abstentions by any board member.
Okay, any discussion, board, regarding this amendment?
Yeah, my dad, go ahead.
If you could, Madam Deputy County Attorney, if you could just brief the board quickly regarding our intent for this particular amendment.
So my understanding is that you all wanted to have a discussion to address the possibility of amending your ethics code, section 7-9, with respect to abstentions. I think that was the weight of the discussion yesterday in the work session. And so I would say that any sponsoring commissioner certainly could lead that discussion. I think we went through where we presently are, and then there was a proposed draft that essentially would, I don't want to say prohibit, but prohibit abstentions for reasons other than conflicts of interest, and then would add to the current abstention policy that would be identified before any discussion or action, where it currently just states before any action.
Okay, any discussion, board? Commissioner Kenner Jones, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair, I was the commissioner that sponsored this one, and it's not to keep commissioners from abstaining. It, in my opinion, is to clarify the rules of abstention. There was conflict between the Planning and Zoning Board members and how their abstentions worked. versus ours just being governed by Robert's Rules of Order. And I do think that from an ethical perspective, we do owe it to the constituents or residents who voted for us to take a position one way or the other. That's recognizing that sometimes you may not have all of the information that you need, but we have procedures in place for tabling agenda items, for deferring agenda items. We get the agendas in advance. We have access to all of the directors or community members who may be putting things on the agenda. So I do want to make sure that we are exhausting all of our resources to get a full understanding of an agenda item. And so that if you are abstaining, it truly is because you have a valid conflict. And I recognize sometimes that conflict may arise in the middle of a discussion. You may not know that you have a conflict, but letting the public know what that is, because I don't think that it's fair to them for us to sit here, participate fully in a discussion, and then not cast a vote one way or the other. I understand that we have the privilege to do that or take that position, but just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. But in addition to that, we have abdicated that option to not let people know what you think when you decided to run for this office and sit on this dais. The public is entitled to our thought process and to understanding how we arrived at a decision. I also think from a legal perspective, when we don't participate in a discussion or give rhyme or reason to why we voted one way or the other, we do increase our liability in terms of developers not knowing why we made decisions. Did we abuse our discretion, things of that nature. So I do think that it is the responsibility of this board to have an appropriate abstention policy and stick to it, and not just decide because we don't want to be on the record for something to not vote or to not participate at all. So that was my reasoning behind sponsoring this resolution. I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kenna Jones. Any other discussion? Commissioner Raxton, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. So just for clarification, just for me, I understand where we say that the member may abstain from voting, but does this also mean that a member can vote to abstain, where you have yes, no, and abstain? I just want to get that clarification. So the member has the privilege to vote either yes, no, or to abstain. Okay.
Yes.
And you would want to keep that option because there legitimately may be a conflict, and you still need to have a way to cast that so that it's a part of the record.
Okay.
So like if I'm going to abstain from something, I still want to be able to click that button, but then disclose I've abstained because I go to the church that's asking for this rezoning or whatever the case may be.
Okay. So you can vote and then just disclose afterwards the reason for abstaining.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think it would depend on what you guys determined that rule to be.
Okay.
As the proposed draft currently is, no.
Okay.
The proposed draft says abstentions for reasons not related to conflict of interest would not be permitted. So the only way you could abstain is if there's a conflict of interest under the proposed, and then you would have to identify that conflict, and then you would not be able to cast your vote. So yes, abstaining would be allowed, but to clarify, abstaining is allowed currently.
Okay.
The change is that you're now basically saying it's limited only to conflict of interest and not for non-conflict of interest reasons. Your section 7.2 that speaks to your definitions identifies what an interest is.
Sure.
There are also other sections in that same chapter that address things like your relationships and other items. Because again, it is your ethics portion. So that's what this is doing. You still have under the proposal the right to abstain, but it's now more limited to just conflicts of interest. So under this, you would not be able to abstain, let's say, if you felt like I don't have enough information or I don't understand. That's now not permitted under the proposed version if you all adopt that.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So again, it's requiring us to vote unless we abstain for conflict of interest.
Yes,
All right.
under the proposed version.
Okay, yeah. All right.
We're good?
Madam Chair, I yield the floor back to you.
Okay. Vice Chair, you have the floor.
That is, just for clarification from Commissioner Kenner Jones, does this also include that if you know that you have to abstain or you're going to abstain, that you cannot engage in conversation? Just want to make that on the record. Is that part of that?
I would say so. I think if you're abstaining because you have a conflict and we're following the same rules that are in place for planning and zoning, you would need to abstain from the process as a whole. If you are a commissioner and you know you have a conflict, you need to announce that and then remove yourself from the discussion.
Okay. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Chair, and thank you so much, Commissioner Kenner Jones. If you could, Madam Deputy County Attorney, if you could just share what's in the existing Muni Code 7.2, some of those reasons why we can, abstaining is important or good reason to abstain, if you could just share those. And then we'll have those available to you, Commissioners, so you'll know exactly when you can abstain or not.
Okay. One moment, I apologize.
That's okay. We have,
So your section 7.2, which has your definitions, identifies your interest as any direct or indirect pecuniary or material benefit held by or accruing to an official or appointed official as a result of a contract or transaction which is or may be subject of an official act or action by or with the county, unless otherwise provided. The term interest does not include a remote interest. For purpose of this chapter, an official or appointed official shall be deemed to have an interest in transactions involving any one of the following: a person and a person's immediate family, a person with whom a contractual relationship exists, whereby such person shall receive any payment or benefit, including agreement or employment, any business in which such person is a director, officer, employee, prospective employee, or greater or substantial shareholder, which is identified as having greater than 10% interest. And so, of course, those are the definitions that identify what an interest is. And then, of course, a conflict would be any interest that would create some sort of bias or appearance of impropriety with respect to that. And, of course, that can be in tandem with your Section 7.3, which speaks to impartiality, Section 7.4, which speaks to gift and favors, Section 7.5, campaign contributions, etc. So that's all part of your comprehensive code, but those those reasons are listed in 7.2.
okay. Is that clear, Board? Okay. With that being said, I'll call the motion. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to amend the ethics ordinance regarding the abstentions by any board member? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes.
Motion carries 4-0. I'm sorry, 4-1.
Okay, 4-1. Okay. We have a 4-1 vote and the motion carries. Thank you. Madam Clerk, tab number 10.
Number 10 is policy regarding removal of items from the consent agenda.
Okay.
So again, I think that this is another discussion about addressing a policy with respect to your rules of procedure. And so I think that there was wanting to be some discussion or adoption of a change in procedure for the consent agenda, or how you handle the consent agenda. And so I'll turn it over to you all for discussion of that.
Any discussion, Board,
I just had a
regarding
question.
the consent agenda? Okay, you have the floor, Commissioner Waxton.
All right, thank you. So just a quick question here, I guess under section 2.3, same rule of procedure under item 8, where we say during the work session, majority of commissioners present may elect to have items added to the consent agenda of the regular meeting. And I guess for me, I was going to just ask the question, is that the next regular meeting? So like the working session is on Monday and the next regular meeting is Tuesday, just to clarify and give that some clarity, that it's the next regular meeting. So just wanted to ask that question, and if there was opportunity, that would be my friendly amendment just to the proposal.
Any further discussion, board? We did make some changes today to the consent agenda, so that rule applies. You know, we pulled 2 items off today to become new business items. Is that something we want to continue? Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. Okay. With that being said, I will call the motion. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to adopt the policy regarding removal of items from the consent agenda? Do we have a motion? I'll try one more time. Do we have a motion to adopt the policy regarding removal of items from the consent agenda? Okay. What that says, the motion, well, fails for the lack of a motion.
So I guess then you
Tab
could
number.
ask for the converse,
Okay.
right, a motion to deny.
Okay. Board of Commissioners, do we have a policy regarding, to deny a policy regarding removal of items from the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of denying this policy regarding removal of items off the consent agenda, please indicate by raising your right hand. Okay, we have a 5-0 vote, and the motion carries with no opposition. So thank you. All right, we'll move to tab number 11. Madam Clerk?
Yes, tab number 11 is board appointments to the Douglas County Housing Authority. You each should have all the names in front of you.
Okay. You all have the names before you for the appointments. Do we have a motion?
Madam
for-
Chair,
Uh-huh.
sorry, I'd like to make a motion in regards to the Housing Authority Board appointments.
Mhm.
I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint Amy McCoy for the 5-year appointment and the resident commissioner Minerva Molina for the 1-year appointment as the resident.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay.
Okay.
The motion carries. We have a 5-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries. Board, we will move to tab
No,
number.
we have 2 that we moved to
Right,
new business.
right.
Yes.
Tab number 12,
Yes, ma'am.
and Madam Clerk, you have the floor.
Okay. Number 12 is approval to purchase a software module from Central Square in the amount not to exceed $65,000 to facilitate the integration of the Douglas County 911 and Douglas County Sheriff's Office computer-aided dispatch systems to be funded through the fund balance, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. This was deferred from May 20th, 2025.
Okay. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion, or before I even call for motion, any discussion?
Add a motion.
Okay.
All right, Madam Chair, I'd like to approve item number 12 with regards to the purchase of software modular from Central Square with the following conditions: that for year 1, it would be funded from the fund balance, and from year 2, funded from the Sheriff's Department's budget.
You have, have you made record of that,
Yes,
Clerk?
ma'am.
Okay, Madam Clerk, just want to make sure you have captured that proposal on your record. Okay? 1 year, you said funded from,
The fund balance, and
Fund
year
balance.
2 from the Sheriff's Department's budget.
okay.
Second.
Hold on. Sorry. Please repeat for me what the condition was.
Yeah, so the condition was that the first year would be funded through the fund balance, and that year 2 would be funded by the Sheriff's Department's budget, which, when the questions was asked yesterday, was supported.
I guess my question is, you're asking that be a part of the contract, or?
So the contract, so it would be a 2-year contract from my understanding, but just from the funding source of the contract, the first year would be funded out of the fund balance as requested, and year 2 would be funded out of the Sheriff's Department budget.
We, in the sheriff's, because he's a constitutional officer, we can't obligate his funding in advance unless we are going to. Yeah, yeah. If we-
Well, I'm sorry, but yesterday, there was a commitment when the question was asked, if they would be willing to fund it out of year 2, out of the Sheriff's Department, and if, well, I think we all recall that it was like, yes, they would be.
It would make me more comfortable if we just vote as to either approve or not approve the contract. Typically, when we do legal review, we do it in a way because counties and cities, right, can incur debt, essentially. So we try to craft the language with respect to making sure that it's for your fiscal year, and then to renew for the subsequent fiscal year, so that you don't run into that issue with funding.
Okay,
And
so,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. So am I understanding you correctly that we can amend the motion to fund for year 1 out of the fund balance?
I think
Without adding the sheriff
Right.
component.
Right, so I'm saying for year 1 to approve, make a motion to approve for the first year out of the fund balance.
it looks like, based on the agenda item, it is to be funded through the fund balance.
But it's asking for 2 years, though. It's asking for 2 separate years as part of the contract.
Second year from somewhere else to fund it.
So I'm
We could do
right.
sheriff or anybody like that.
Yeah.
You have the floor, Vice. Wait, let me make sure you finish. Are you finished?
No, that's the question, I guess, to the county attorney there.
Let me just make sure you finish.
Um,
Okay?
I guess my understanding is, if I understand you correctly, you're asking to pull it from 2 different funding sources?
That's the initial request, but if we're saying that there is a concern with that, then my amendment is to fund it for year 1 out of the general fund, or out of the fund balance as presented on the agenda for year 1.
Okay, and then,
All right, so only for 1 year.
okay, and then you want them to have to come back?
Right. To discuss for year 2.
Okay. So I think as it's currently written in the agreement, it's for 1 year, and then typically it would auto-renew. So if you want them to have to come back, then we'd have to probably remove the auto-renew.
Okay. All right, well, I'd like to amend my motion, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'd like to amend my motion to approve the purchase of the software module for Central Square in the amount not to exceed $65,000 for the fund balance for year 1.
Okay.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor, I guess.
Okay. Is one already on the floor? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am, he's made a motion, so.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. I just want to make sure we capture, because you're going to have to remove the auto renew out of the contract, right? The
Let me pull up the
language that says
contract.
auto renew. I'm just trying to make sure if you're saying 1 year.
So the contract usually doesn't speak to the funding source. It just sets out the other terms for us. So, you know, if the provision allows to terminate, if there's an issue with termination, then as we've done, we would bring it back before the board and terminate, you know, the contract.
Okay.
Vote to terminate the contract. Otherwise, it would just auto renew for the subsequent year, but it never speaks to
Okay.
the funding source, because that's not really between the vendors and the county. That's
Correct.
really for the county to resolve.
Commissioner, could you restate your motion, please?
Sure. Sure. My motion is that we approve the purchase of the software modular from Central Square in amount not to exceed for the first year, for year one, out of the fund balance.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Vice Chairman, you have the floor.
It was just my understanding that it's going to take 6 months to set up, and then we're going to only get 6 months out of that initial year. And then 911, if I understood correctly, 911 and the Sheriff's Office both said that they would fund this. However, we're going to have to modify their budget and put it in their budget to go forward. But what I would hate to see is to get this set up for 6 months, and then all of a sudden us just not fund it or something happen. Director Harley's here. If I'm saying anything wrong, you're welcome to correct me. But, you know, they're also going to work. This is going to be a combined effort, as we discussed yesterday, a combined effort for all the agencies to come together and talk and try to get this under one contract, because doing all this throughout the county would get us much better pricing. So I would at least like to give them 2 years to get this established. Plus, with the contract, am I wrong that Deputy Chief Connor said that we already negotiated this 2 years? After that, it'll go up 5%. So if we only fund it once and only allow them to have one, I would hate for something to go bad. At least let's give them 2 years to get this established. But yes, we are going to have to put that in their budget going forward. Am I correct on that, Director Harley?
First of all, good afternoon, good evening. Good evening. So as far as the contract with Central Square for the unified component, 911, that contract was negotiated by the Sheriff's Office. So therefore, 911 hasn't seen that contract, so I don't know necessarily the particulars of that contract. As far as Unified itself, 911 actually does not have it in its budget to fund Unify with all of our other projects and things. And so that's where 911's position is on Unify.
Sure. Okay. But we're going to have to provide you with that funding to get this together for this to work, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed to know. Thank you, Director Harley. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Please prepare to cast your
I'm
vote.
sorry. So now I'm confused.
'Cause
Are we voting for the 1 year
Just the 1 year.
or as this?
Yes, it's modifying this to say that with the contract that the Sheriff's Office already set up, it's saying right now we're only going to approve 1 year.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And again, we're not saying we're not going to approve it for year two. Right now, being conscientious of the funding source, that's where I'm also, trying to make sure that we're just physically aware. So right now, I'm comfortable with saying year one out of the fund balance.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor, and we've had discussion. If there's any other discussion, please speak now. Okay, if not, please prepare to cast your votes.
We'll need a hand vote since we amended it.
Okay, all in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. All opposed? 3-2, and the motion carries. Thank you. We're gonna move on to tab number 23. Clerk, you need to
Yes,
bring it
ma'am.
forward.
Tab number 23 is and we had a correction with the date, so I'll read it with the corrected date. A resolution directing the administration to complete a comprehensive review and study by October 31st, 2025, that addresses the goal of providing the board with a comprehensive and coordinated strategic plan to deliver consolidated, efficient, and optimal service delivery of countywide public safety services.
Okay. Any discussion, board, before I call a motion on this item? I believe we had someone, was it you, Commissioner?
She already read my amendment. I
Okay,
think
she already
Commissioner
got it.
Alcaraz wanted to add
Okay.
something.
I'll just wait till we make the,
Okay.
or get the second.
Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the resolution directing the administration to complete a comprehensive review and study by October 31st that addresses the goals of providing the board with a comprehensive and coordinated strategic plan to deliver consolidated, efficient, and optimal service delivery of countywide public safety services.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, Vice Chairman, you have the floor.
So Commissioner Kenner Jones and I was talking this afternoon. I've also spoken with administration and also the sheriff's office. You know, we're trying to get this before the budget because that's, you know, but however, with many things that we have, mid-year budget and everything going on, really not sure if we can, you know, hit that desired goal, which Commissioner Kenner Jones and I both, you know, probably agreed on. We were maybe looking for that end result, maybe the first quarter of next year, but at least get the SWOT, you know, out for it in regards to the weak strengths and weaknesses
Yeah,
and
the SWOT
so on.
analysis.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just for the small analysis, so we know what we're working with, because we're going to have to get the city involved, the school board involved, and to do all that, it's going to be quite the task. But to get all of them together in the room so we can all have that big conversation, fire department, police department, sheriff's office, animal control, everyone in public safety, it's going to take, you know, a little bit of effort. And I know that county administration is already working on that, but just want to say that we set this, but Commissioner Kenner Jones and I both looked at this and agreed that, you know, the probability of having this by that time, the full report it might not happen, but I appreciate her at least changing it to, but because it needs to be before the budget. But then we'll look at maybe if we could for the staff to have that to us, you know, latest by the first quarter of next year.
Okay. Any other further discussion, board? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Is that, or you want to cast a vote?
Oh.
Electronic? Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Please cast your electronic votes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Okay.
Next, Board of Commissioners, we'll move to our consent agenda, and certainly we've had an opportunity to discuss these items at our yesterday's work session. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, Board?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Please prepare to cast your votes. Board of Commissioners, we have a few announcements this evening, and our Chief Communications Officer, Yvette Jones, will come up to read our announcements. Hello, hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, good evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, County Administration. Pleased to stand before you with a few announcements. We'll mark your calendars for the Mirror Lake Community Cookout, hosted by Vice Chair and District Board Commissioner Mark Alcaraz and Douglas County Sheriff Tim Pounds. The event will be held on Saturday, July 12th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Lifegate Church in Villa Rica. The event is free and open to the public and promises to be a day full of fun and fellowship. We hope to see you there. Please be advised the Douglas County Courthouse and administrative offices will be closed in observance of Juneteenth on Thursday, June 19th, 2025. Regular operations will resume on Friday, June 20th, 2025. Applications are now being accepted for the 2025-26 Douglas County Youth Commission. The program is open to high school students in grades 10 through 12. The Youth Commission program provides an opportunity for students to learn about the inner workings of local government, engage in civic affairs, and become leaders in the community. In previous years, students have designed service projects, met and engaged with community leaders, and visited the state capitol, among many other activities. The application is available on the county website at douglascountyga.gov under the Constituent Services tab. There is still time to see our dynamic art show entitled Sacred Symbols, showing in the Courthouse Art Gallery on the 3rd floor through June 30th. As well as art on canvas, the show features intricately carved wooden panels and carved wooden statues painted meticulously to bring the subjects to life. Many of the pieces depict famous biblical images. Visitors can view the show for free during courthouse hours, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. And the West Georgia Regional Library System is proud to announce the installation of remote book lockers throughout its 5-county service area, including right here at Boundary Waters in Douglas County. The secure self-service book lockers allow patrons to pick up book holds anytime, day or night. Simply select one of the book locker locations when placing a hold in the Pines catalog. Once your items are ready, you will be notified and you can pick them up at your convenience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A book drop is also available at the Boundary Waters location for easy returns. And while the Douglas County Public Library is temporarily closed for major renovations, a temporary library location will open on Monday, June 23rd, to continue providing essential library services. The temporary library will be located at 8465 Campbellton Street in Douglasville and will offer basic library services, including book and movie checkouts, public computer access, printing and Wi-Fi, and many other library resources. For hours of operation and additional information, visit wgrls.org or call 770-920-7125. And the Douglas County Department of Transportation is seeking feedback regarding the proposed widening of Bomar Road and the extension of Lee Road. You can learn more about the project and offer your input during a public information open house on Tuesday, July 15th at Deer Lick Park Activity Center from 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. The meeting is informal and the public is welcome to drop in at any time during that time frame. For more information, visit the county website at douglascountyga.gov and navigate to the Department of Transportation page. And that completes our announcements for this evening. I yield back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Chief Communications Officer, for rendering such great announcements. As we realize we have quite a bit going on in our county, and we're excited and hope that our citizens would participate in join all the excitement. With that being said, Deputy County Attorney, do we need to go into executive session?
We actually do for one item, Madam Chair, and it would be under litigation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Madam County Attorney. Board of Commissioners, and certainly the citizens of Douglas County, the Board of Commissioners would take a slight pause for the calls again to go into executive session for a matter. And I will name those items. Do we have a motion, Board of Commissioners, to go into executive session to discuss litigation, personnel, real estate, and cybersecurity?
So moved.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, board? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please cast your votes of going into executive session.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. We will take a slight pause for the calls to engage in executive session. We will meet you all upstairs, board.